Hello everybody, this is Jack from Fluency.com along with my wife Kate, and if you have seen one of our lessons before, then you'll know that we have natural conversations about a variety of different topics, and that's what this video is about. So if you are new, then welcome to you. Please like this video and also subscribe, and check out the description because I'm going to leave key vocabulary there so that you can learn some new words and phrases. Okay, that was a long introduction. What are we going to talk about?
Okay, so today I'd like to talk about the experience of living in a foreign country.
Yeah, the experience of living in a foreign country, which is what I am doing right now, what we both did when we lived in Spain.
And if you're learning English, you're probably wondering, what it would be like to live in America or the UK. Maybe you've had an experience living or visiting one of these countries. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who follow us here live in the UK and live in America.
Yeah.
I get a lot of emails from people. So it's kind of interesting to think about it in that way.
Yeah.
So we moved to Spain in 2008.
Wow.
10 years ago.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe it's been 10 years.
It's been 10 years.
Okay.
And we lived in Bilbao for a year. And then we lived in Valencia in Spain. How can we start this? What do you think is a good place to start?
Yeah. So I was thinking we could talk a little bit about what it's like to be in a foreign country and some of the things that we missed.
While living there.
Yes.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the things that we miss about not being in Spain now.
Yeah. Yeah. Like some of the things that were the hardest at the time and some of the best things that we took away from that experience.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So one of the biggest challenges we faced when we got there was finding somewhere to live. And I do know that some people didn't want us because we were foreign. They heard the accent, Shockingly, they didn't think I was Spanish when I was speaking to them over the phone.
Yeah.
So it was quite difficult to find a place, but not just because of that, but because also we didn't know the regulations, we didn't know how things worked.
Yeah, I think that's a really big part of living in a foreign country that people can find challenging.
Yeah.
Is like there's so much that you just don't know exactly how to do things.
Exactly.
And little things, like big things like finding an apartment, but also little things like getting food at the supermarket.
Yeah.
Or
one thing about Bilbao was when you are at a bar or a restaurant, you just throw napkins, you throw the little toothpicks for the pinchos.
Oh, pinchos. Oh, I miss pinchos and the food in Spain.
Yes. So the pinchos are like these little snacks, usually bread and then something on top.
Yeah.
But when you are finished with whatever you're using, you throw it on the floor.
In Bilbao.
In Bilbao. Yeah. The other thing about Bilbao, people drove really well compared to Valencia.
We loved Valencia though too.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm just saying in Valencia,
Little details.
people were crazy on the roads.
True.
True. And you had to, when the green man came on to cross the road, you had to be very quick.
Yeah, you had to run.
Yeah. Because it gave you like 5 seconds to cross 6 lanes of traffic.
True.
But going back to Bilbao, it took us a long time to find a place. And one of the things I remember was having to pay the realtor a month's rent.
Yes.
Because they helped us find this apartment.
This apartment.
We didn't know that.
Nope.
That was something new to us.
It was a surprise.
It was a surprise. So it took us a long time to find a place. We also found it difficult to know when there was a holiday and the fact that everything is closed.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Everything is closed.
Everything is closed, which is amazing because people take that time to go back to their villages, to really, close up stores and businesses and take that break. But when you're foreign and you don't know how those kind of cultural things work, it can be difficult.
Yes. And just a note on that, it helps protect family businesses, doesn't it? Because they can take that time off knowing that everything else is closed. One thing as well, when we had to get furniture, where did we go?
We went to Ikea.
What happened at Ikea?
We didn't know that the subway had closed, and we bought an entire apartment worth of furniture.
Yeah.
We had a bed and a table and some chairs already, but we got everything else. And so we just rolled out of Ikea with our shopping carts full. No idea how to get it home.
Yeah, so I remember standing there after going through the checkout and just looking at the delivery service as well, which was closed.
Yeah.
The subway had closed.
Yes.
And people were starting to look at us and talk.
And talk about us.
They thought that we were from...
I don't remember.
Finland.
From Finland?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really cool.
So,
and
what happened?
Well, I think that all of these little experiences are really what was hardest for me about living in a foreign country, which is just trying to be, just trying to live and have people see me as a person.
Right.
Who, and so many little things, like it's hard to have a sense of humor when you don't speak the language. And probably you're finding this if you're learning English, that your sense of humor may not translate.
Exactly.
So jokes and things like that. And then just trying to have a, conversation and take care of business is challenging.
To take care of business.
Yeah.
And just to finish the story, in case people are wondering.
Yes. It has a happy ending.
Yeah, at IKEA, there was a guy who worked there, and he saw that we were having problems, and he took us with all our stuff back to our apartment.
Yes.
Which was very nice.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
We're very thankful still.
Still, definitely.
10 years later.
So, what are 2 or 3, you've got a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so we talked about some things that were challenging at first, but I almost forgot those now. It's been so long. What are some of the amazing things about living in Spain that have really stuck with you?
That's the question I was going to ask.
Oh.
Yeah, so we had the same idea. Well, I think a big part of it for me was it was the first time that I was working and living on my own. So I went to university and I was living on my own then, but when I was working in my hometown, I was living with my parents. So it was the first time that I was living and working on my own. And I remember getting to Bilbao and just being so excited.
Yeah.
And we were really open to trying new things and really experiencing Spain. But some of the things I really enjoyed, part of it is the bar hopping and going out with people, and the culture of having a little bit of alcohol, having a little bit of food, going to the next place. And the friends that we made there as part of that experience too. The people were great.
So amazing.
Really good fun.
Yes.
And when we talk about a sense of humour, we could laugh and joke about things if they spoke English.
Yes. And by the end of the experience too, we could understand more about the sense of humor and
Yeah, and have the context for that too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time you're learning about the current political situation. You have to learn about the local football team and the history of it and why that's important. You have to learn all these different things. The audio's still going. To like really get that context and to understand what is going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we worked as English teachers, didn't we?
We did. Both of us.
I also just enjoy being in a big city with lots of public transport.
Yes. It was you know, some countries are a little bit harder to kind of live a casual, young life in. And I think that the United States in places can be challenging if you don't have a car,
Yes.
if you don't have, you know, I guess savings for health insurance and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes, so there were so many good things too. And now you've started this whole other chapter of your life where you're living in a foreign country, and I forget that sometimes.
Yeah, you do forget that.
Yeah, do you forget it too?
Yeah, I see where I live now as home.
Okay.
And one of the things here is that people don't talk about the fact I'm English all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas in other parts of the US, that can be quite novel.
Yeah.
And people only want to talk about that. But here, people are more... I guess, you know, we've been friends with people for a long time. I've probably modified the way I speak a little bit.
Yep.
So people can understand. I say soccer.
He says soccer.
I say soccer all the time. Because there's no point saying football, because then that creates confusion.
So much confusion.
Yeah, I'm saying that to justify in case a friend from home is watching, because they don't like it. but yeah, I
You're
see it as
American.
home. I see it as home.
Practically.
Well, not legally.
Yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you notice anything about me living in a foreign country that, you know, is there anything that you pick up on still? Or do you feel like I'm just here?
Yeah, that's a really hard question to answer because we are together so much. And a lot of what we're doing, you know, parenting, just running our lives, you know, we don't really get a time to step back and to think about it. I think when I really thought about it was when you mentioned that you were a little bit homesick before our trip. And so when you were feeling homesick, what occurred to you? What were you thinking about or missing?
Yeah, I think it's just being in an environment that you grew up in.
Yeah.
More than anything.
What about that environment?
The way people speak.
Okay.
The food. The television. The sense of humour in certain ways. And just to experience it again. That's what I was missing. And it wasn't a really strong feeling. I wasn't like, I need to go home, I miss it so much.
Yeah.
But it was more a feeling of wanting to go back, just to experience it again.
Yeah.
And it's a good problem to have because we've talked about, America, the UK. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. We're very lucky that we get to kind of experience both cultures and, you know, and to make our lives in this town or city that we chose, which is really neat. But your children are American.
Yeah.
Is that strange?
Well, the other day we were watching videos of Thomas, and he is now 4.5. And there was a video of when he was about 2. And I feel like his accent when he was 2 was more British. Not more British than American, but it sounded a little bit more British.
More British than it does.
And then now it's American. But I think what happens is I don't hear an American accent when you speak. I just hear you because I'm used to it. And it's the same with my children. I just hear them speak. And I don't really think, oh, you sound American.
You sound American.
Because I'm so used to the American accent now.
Yeah.
It's just normal. It's not It doesn't sound strange.
So recently, when we went back to the UK, what were some things that really stood out to you? Either when we were in the UK or when we came back here.
It's hard to say. I was going to say the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not like a real big thing, but the traffic was crazy.
Yeah. In the UK.
In the UK.
Okay.
But then again, we live in a smaller city here, so and we spent hours. Well, it took us 3 hours instead of an hour and a half to get to the airport in New York.
Yeah.
So we just had New York traffic.
Uh-huh.
There was nothing really that I can think of that stood out.
Okay,
What about
so
you?
we were in the north of England
Yes.
in December.
Yes.
We knew the weather was not going to be great,
Yeah.
and we were happy with that. We just wanted to see family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
But was the weather better than you remember, worse than you remember, or about the same?
When I was growing up, it was just what it was like.
Yeah.
But after having this experience here and living here, it was really bad.
There you have
really
it.
bad.
Yes.
And maybe bad isn't the right word, but it was grey.
Mm-hmm.
It rained every day.
Yep.
And it never got super cold
Mm-hmm.
because we had just been in Connecticut where it was minus 20 degrees Celsius.
So cold. Mm-hmm.
And we went back to Connecticut, it was minus 30. It was crazy.
So cold.
Yeah.
So cold.
And I used to think that there wasn't a big difference between minus 4 and minus 10 and minus 15, but there is.
Yes. Your skin just hurts.
Yeah.
And probably if there's anybody
Breathing.
from Russia listening,
Yes.
they're laughing at us, but it does.
Yeah. But it never got that cold, but it was just the grey atmosphere.
It's dreary.
Yeah. And it never gets really light,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the north. It's not too much better in the south because it's such a small island.
Mm-hmm.
So that is definitely one thing that stood out.
Would you want to ever go back and live in the UK?
Yeah.
And what motivates that?
That's a good question. I think just to be closer to family and friends, old
Yes.
friends.
Yes, Jack has this amazing group of friends that he's had almost his entire life
Yeah,
since they were in primary school together.
yeah.
Is that right?
That is
called
right.
Primary
Yeah,
school?
primary.
Okay.
What's it called here?
Elementary school.
Yeah. So yeah, friends, family, and just to experience the culture again after a pause, a break,
Yeah. and
living somewhere else.
you mentioned food and
Hmm.
there was something else. But while we're on
Food.
food, what food were you thinking of when you're feeling
Sauces.
sauces?
Always sauces.
Uh-huh.
Salad cream.
Salad cream, which is basically like sweet mayonnaise, if
Yeah.
you're familiar with that.
Brown sauce.
Brown sauce, like steak sauce, sort of.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
brown sauce.
Brown sauce.
And you can get those here, but
Yeah, not in every grocery
not.
store, though.
No, you have
Yeah.
to.
You have to really
find
look
them.
for them. Mm-hmm.
They're more expensive,
Yes.
but I also like to experience those sauces in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, another
On
thing I
binge food.
miss.
Yeah.
Another thing is football.
Yes.
Soccer football.
Mm-hmm.
And
You can just say soccer.
soccer. That's another thing I miss.
Uh-huh.
But it's growing here. But I went to a football game, a soccer game. It's hard. This is the problem I have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to call it football for the rest of this video.
What?
It gives me a license.
Okay, that's fine.
I went to my local football team and watched them play, and it was an incredible experience because
And
it
you
had
got to
been
bring your
10
son.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
my son went for the first time. It was great, but it was cold and it was wet. It was great.
Did you get a little choked up?
Choked up a little bit, yeah, which means emotional.
Mm-hmm.
When we scored, I did a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun.
Did you tell everybody what your hometown team is?
I've mentioned it many times. If you're new here, though, or if you need a reminder, it's Preston North End.
Mm-hmm.
I'll leave a link to their Wikipedia page in the description,
Great.
so you can all check that out.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, that you miss, like sauces, and like I missed strange little things when we were living in Spain. I missed peanut butter.
Can you not get that in Spain?
I think you can, but it's not as common.
Right.
So I missed like Reese's Pieces.
Which you never eat.
Which I never eat. And Thin Mints. Like the things that you crave are small. But the experience of living in a foreign country, do you think that it changes just the way that you think about the world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it takes you out of your environment and your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of resets certain things.
Yeah.
The way you think about the world, which is always based on your environment and your, upbringing and your experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're thrown into a different country,
Yeah.
when you go to a different country.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I will say as well is, as English teachers living in Spain, people wanted to make friends with us.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to practice their English.
Uh-huh.
And we knew that.
Yeah.
But it was a really good relationship.
Mm-hmm. And I think in general, when you are somebody foreign living in a different country, if you're open to making friends, people are excited to have that cultural exchange.
Yes.
And to kind of talk to you and learn more about your country and where you're from. And I know people still do it. People still do it with you, not as often, but they're excited.
I think people don't want to ask me where I'm from.
Yeah.
Because they might be worried about. This is just my theory about me saying, well, I'm in America. What do you mean, where am I from?
Or that you're really Australian or South African or something that they don't really know.
Yeah, half of people who guess, they guess Australian.
Yeah.
And so I feel like people are worried about making that wrong assumption. Like if I say, oh, where in America are you from? And the person says, I'm from Canada.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That has happened before.
That has happened before.
Especially traveling, because you meet a lot of people from English-speaking countries.
Yep.
And you can make that mistake. So I feel like people are worried about that, and it's difficult for them to ask the question in a way that might be in a way that isn't impolite in their own head.
Yes. Yeah,
if that makes sense.
I think that, to be honest, that's something that comes up again and again when you have these experiences in foreign countries. I think that people are more worried about other people judging them than they need to be. Mm-hmm. You go to a foreign country, you put yourself out there, and people see that and they recognize that.
Definitely.
And they like that. They want to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there are also the people who immediately do a British accent.
Oh, yes.
And usually a bad one.
Very
and
bad.
I don't mind it in general.
And now that we've spent some time in the UK, I can say that people also do a terrible American accent.
Yeah, they do.
Uh-huh.
And it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like a cowboy crossed with a gangster.
Can you do...
No. No.
Can you give an example of what that would sound like?
No. But you can imagine it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's funny. And if you could move to a foreign country that isn't Spain, that isn't the UK...
Isn't the UK?
Yeah. This is my question. To experience another... foreign culture, which one would it be?
How about if you could move to any English-speaking country for a while?
No, any country.
Okay.
The question is any country. That isn't Spain or the UK, or America.
Okay.
Where would you like?
Oh, me?
Yeah, I'm asking you a
Oh,
question.
I thought that we were asking
No,
them,
no,
and
no,
I was
no.
like,
I'm saying for
okay.
you, like, where would
Oh.
you like to experience?
This is a really tricky question. I think that I would be excited to experience some of the European countries where people have really good chocolate and ride the bicycles a lot.
Right.
And
So, because I've
what
got
do you
something in
think?
my head
Yeah.
that I would choose.
Okay, what would you choose?
Germany.
Okay. Maybe Germany, maybe Denmark, maybe just to be somewhere, and also somewhere where people don't speak English, so I could have that experience of being somebody who doesn't speak the language
Yeah.
because it's so uncomfortable at times to not be able to express yourself, but you learn so much.
Hmm.
And that's just amazing.
And that's a lesson,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. And if, people are going to an English speaking country,
Uh-huh.
it's so easy to find that expat community and just stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And we fell into that trap, or we did too much of that maybe
Yeah.
in Spain.
Maybe.
It was difficult because we were English teachers, so our job was
Mm-hmm.
to only speak in English.
True.
But yeah, I think that's a great question. Great question for them.
Now that I tried to talk over your question for me with one,
It's
is
always
that a
Kate.
good one?
It's always Kate's question.
Okay. Kate's question. If you could move to any English speaking country, so we've got Canada, the United States, Australia. I feel like we left out a lot.
New Zealand,
New
Islands,
Zealand,
the UK.
Ireland, the UK. Which country would you choose and why? And how long would you want to live there?
Wow, great question.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this episode of our conversational lessons. And again, if you are new, like, subscribe to this channel. We have many more conversations coming up this year.
Yes.
And
Very
also,
exciting.
like I said before, check the description for a list of the key phrases and vocabulary that we used. Thank you so much for watching and for being here.
Thank you.
Bye-bye for now.